Football is a speed and power dominant sport. If you really think of it, almost every action happens in a matter of split seconds, be it shooting, sprinting, or passing the ball. Every action just requires you to be fast. Having said that, not every player possesses the physical speed of Kylian Mbappe, and that can sometimes become a limiting factor that coaches don't like. I'm not saying you need the speed of Mbappe in order to excel in the game, but I'm more so saying that the demands of the game are getting higher and higher. So if you're not keeping up with them, guess what? Your chances will only get smaller and smaller. So let's go over 4 of the most effective ways you can start developing your speed to meet those demands and start making a greater impact in this game. The first thing I want to touch upon are biomechanics, or in other words, the way you move. When it comes to speed in football, one of the most common things I see is players sprinting, cutting, and turning improperly, at least if you review their movement from an energy efficient perspective. The wrong biomechanics won't only limit your ability to run faster, but they will also drastically increase the risk for injury. The theory behind that is simple. High velocity running requires the application of high forces into the ground within split seconds. If your movement is not energy efficient, then the way your body quote-unquote recycles energy from your body into the ground and then back up will also become less efficient. This results in energy leaks that really limit your ability to apply high forces into the ground and therefore reach higher velocities despite your genetic and neuromuscular potential being quite high. So how do you correct this? Although a magic exercise does not exist, there's a variety of principles and tools you can use to correct your movement flaws. Now, because this topic is pretty broad and the flaws that exist are literally a dozen, all you need to do is this: assess your movement and choose the exercise and the progressions that best suit your needs. The main areas you need to look into when assessing yourself are linear speed, change of direction, and turning mechanics. You can find a ton of articles online that go through what proper movement is, so go through your own videos, compare yourself with some of the norms that are widely accepted in the sports biomechanics field, and find those movement flaws. Then, in order to fix those flaws, you need to use the right principles and tools. Structure your training in a way that's progressive and put a huge emphasis on movement quality, leaving intensity aside for a moment. Usually, a great time to get some movement work in is during the warm-up phase where you're transitioning into the session. The tools you can use to correct your movement are literally endless. We like to use a variety of them with our athletes, but our favorites include hops, skips, run-specific isometrics, and drills against the wall. These are the ones we had the most success with. Having said that, I also want you to keep 2 things in mind. Number 1, perfect movement does not exist, at least in a chaotic sport such as football, where movement is unpredictable. Am I saying that you shouldn't care about it though? Absolutely not. Less efficient movement mechanics are one of the top reasons players limit their potential. All I'm saying is that you shouldn't aim for perfection and instead strive to get into a movement zone that makes you less injury prone and energy efficient. Now, the second thing I want you to keep in mind is that despite corrective movement exercises being great for speed development, they can also become a not so good thing if you don't perform them properly, for the sole reason that low quality repetition will reinforce those low quality biomechanics into the athlete's system. So always make sure you're performing those movement exercises properly and avoid mistakes, even if that means taking a step back, lowering the intensity, and getting a feel for the movement first. Be careful, folks. Now, next up, I want to talk about the way you work out inside the gym. The most common mistake I see players make is pouring all their energy and time into general strength and hypertrophy work. I get it. Some of you need these two more than other players, but if you're here to improve your speed, but you're still training this way month after month, you clearly have to rethink your development strategy. I'm not saying that general strength work won't help you at all, but I'm quite certain that you will reach a dead end at some point, and the returns won't be that great as they were in the beginning, because this type of work either isn't enough to stimulate speed development or doesn't offer the greatest ROI. Start looking into things such as plyometrics and ballistics to stress the stretch shortening cycle and the rate at which you develop force. Start lifting some heavy weights for low reps and high sets to stress max strength and increase the maximal amount of force you can produce. Start lifting lighter weights super fast to stress your power and speed, and so on and so forth. Just start thinking outside the box and stop following that stupid norm of 3 sets of 12 to 15 reps that many football coaches and general pop trainers swear by. Become more versatile with the tools you use and understand why you're doing what you're doing. Don't just go to the gym, lift some weights, and expect development in all areas of your game. You have to train smarter. And speaking of ways to train smarter, let's not forget the most fundamental speed development tool there is out there: sprinting. Out of all the tips that we mentioned and all the tools and exercises that exist out there is nothing that can stimulate speed development better than actual sprinting. Now, there's a lot of ways you can incorporate sprinting in your weekly training, and the dosing of it really depends on the individual. For example, In-season players usually get most of their high-speed distance covered at team practice. This means that when they are in their off-season, they will have more time and energy to invest into actual sprint work. Although the volume of those sprints may vary from level to level, I like to keep the sprint distance below the 3 to 350 meter mark for my off-season players and below 50 to 100 meters for my in-season players, since they are getting enough of it at practice and we're just performing it to prime them for their game. It always depends on the individual though. The variety of exercises is literally endless. Play with the starting positions, include transitions from a plyometric action to a sprint, add some resistance, either with a sled, a resistance band, some chains or a hill, and always make some time for the queen of speed training, or otherwise known as top velocity sprinting, an exceptional tool for speed development, but it will also keep those tendons and hamstrings healthy and bulletproof. Last but not least, don't forget that you're playing a multi-directional sport. Don't just dedicate all your time and energy into linear sprinting, but also make sure you're performing some of the multi-directional ones as well. Now, a bonus point I wanted to touch upon before closing this video is that you need to be taking enough time to rest in between maximal sprinting efforts. That's a really big mistake I see many players and coaches making because they think that hard work and grinding is the way to go. The reason this is a stupid training habit is that you're simply targeting other energy systems and making your session more conditioning focused. During maximal sprinting efforts, your body uses phosphocreatine as the primary energy source. Unfortunately, your phosphocreatine stores get depleted after about 8 to 15 seconds of high intensity effort before you start using glycogen. In order to restore your phosphocreatine stores again, you'll have to wait at least 2 minutes if you want to target speed development and not conditioning. So having this in mind, as well as the fact that most of the sprint work you'll be doing will be less than 30 meters per rep, it makes sense to say that you should be resting about 2 to 4 minutes per sprint, depending on the distance of the actual drill. Now that we've got this topic out of the way, I also want you to invest some time and energy to develop your cognitive speed, another heavily neglected aspect of performance that can help you make a greater impact. So if you want to improve this as well, watch this video next to learn more, and I will see you in the next video. Have a good one, guys.